It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Trevor Harrison. Hello, Trevor. How are you?
Hello there, Douglas. I'm doing pretty good. Nice to talk to you this afternoon. Yeah.
Well, nice to talk to you too. Glad to have you on the show. And we're going to be talking about your book, your latest book, called Tales This Side of the Elysian Fields. Is that how you pronounce that?
Elysian Fields, yeah.
Elysian Fields. Yeah. Okay, where is that exactly?
Well, it's actually taken from old mythology, Roman and Greek, around the idea that the warriors, when they died, they would go off to a kind of like Valhalla, I guess, on their way to heaven. And so it was kind of a place of drinking and merriment and all the rewards of, the afterlife. And so as I explain in the first chapter of the book, though, of course, I'm not dead yet. Some may wish that. But I'm not dead yet, so I'm not venturing over there, and hence that's why it's called Tales This Side of the Elysian Fields.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's not a real place. It's a...
No, it's kind of a fantasy place, and as I said, it's the closest thing otherwise I can think of is Valhalla, where the Norse warriors would go to.
Okay. Well, a real place is Lethbridge, and you are a retired professor of sociology. Now, I don't know where that is either, but I'm assuming that's a real place.
Well, yes, it is definitely a real place. It's about 50 miles north of the Montana border. So a lot of us here over the years have certainly gone down to Montana, and of course, people coming back the other way. So, yeah, we're in the very southern part of the province of Alberta. All
right. And how long have you been retired?
Well, actually, pretty recently, not quite 2 years ago now. But one of the benefits of retiring is I don't have to take part in academic meetings and committees and everything. And it kind of freed me up to return to an interest I had back when I was a teenager or in my 20s of doing a different kind of writing than the kind of academic writing I had done for quite a few years. And so the last couple of years, I've returned to writing short stories and, in this case, kind of autobiographical stories, and also some poetry again. So I'm kind of freed up to, pursue other kind of creative avenues.
So this particular book, it looks like it's a collection of essays from your travels in the 70s and 80s. Well, that sounds interesting just on its own. Did you actually write these just from memory, or did you have a diary or something that you were keeping all those years?
Yeah, they certainly memory helped, but I did actually have a lot of notes. One of the things when I was traveling around or even just doing regular kind of work or whatever, I would keep kind of scattered notes. Sometimes they were, fragmentary, and sometimes bits of poetry thrown in. And so I had all these notes to go back to, and over the last couple of years, I decided, hey, there's, I think, something kind of interesting here. The stories, for some people, they might find them compelling, and also a lot of times actually fairly humorous. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to put these together. And fortunately, I found a publisher who, when he read them over, said also that he thought there was a book here. There was something definitely worth publishing. One of the things in the book also is there's a few photos, but there's also a few sketches I did at the time when I was working at different jobs or traveling to different places.
Well, it was a different world to travel back then. I mean, this was pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre-smartphone. So you really could immerse yourself in different cultures without getting bombarded with your daily dose of social media and, you know what I mean, this sort of connection to the rest of the world. You could be in the culture that you were in better than you could now. The world is very unhomogenized, these days,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Good way of putting it, Douglas.
yeah, as opposed to now, where regardless of where you go, everybody's got a phone. So,
Well, and I think one of the things, and I've thought about this a lot over the years, and so I've always had a real interest in travel, and I still do it. But you're right, it's changed a great deal. And one of the unfortunate things, and young people going out traveling today, I think, don't quite realize it, is there's so many things that pull you back into the life that you already have. And so, if you're traveling with friends, or, again, people are sending you messages on your cell phone or your iPad or whatever, you never actually get away from the world that you are part of, and you don't get to immerse yourself in other places, cultures. You don't get to kind of experience people in those places in their way of living, and I think that's a real loss for all of us, that we can't really do that. So. Yeah, the book in some ways is kind of a reflection of all of that. For example, one of the chapters deals with being in Barcelona years ago, and this was a time when Francisco Franco was still dictator in Spain. And but you really get to kind of know the people and experience the way they're actually living there, and observe things with kind of fresh eyes as you go in. So, yeah, we've travel has changed a great deal, and not necessarily for the better, I think.
well, I have to agree with you, because it's almost like, what's the point if you're going to be constantly bombarded with text messages from people at home and checking on your social media? And I mean, short of traveling without internet, you really can't do it anymore. And, honestly, I don't know if people these days would even think of doing that, unless you're really, like, you're going to go climb Mount Everest or do something like that, where there just isn't going to be any connection to the outside world. Anywhere you go, there's going to be internet.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of being very consciously aware of your own circumstances to kind of force yourself away from that, to not give in to, jumping to read what's going on right now in North America or something, to really kind of live in that particular space. So you have to be very conscious of it, and I think a lot of people just easily default to it. The other thing is, of course, that and the world is in some ways a more dangerous place. But I think a lot of people over-exaggerate that, too. There is possibilities of still going places and still feeling quite safe, and not feeling that you have to have everything kind of programmed and determined for you when you go out there. A lot of people still, feel that they can't go someplace unless they're totally safe. I just recently, actually, in the fall, went to Southeast Asia, and I backpacked around like I was 25 again. And lots of things have changed, but I didn't feel terribly threatened. And to get back to that kind of travel, I think is really the kind of ideal.
Where did you go? Thailand?
Landed in Vietnam, which I'd love to go back to again, then to Cambodia, and then to Thailand. That trip, of course, doesn't appear in this book, but I'm hoping to actually go back and probably write some more travelogues about some of these other travels I've done in the last few years.
So when you were traveling in the 70s and the 80s, were you alone?
Yeah, most of the time I was. Sometimes you'd travel and partner up with people. Someone happens to be going the same place you're planning to, so you get to meet new people as you go. But I fairly intentionally lots of times did travel on my own, and again, that was partly because I didn't want to be pulled back into kind of a life and experience that I already was aware of. And so I wanted to be able to, experience and meet people fresh, just myself. And so that was very much how I used to travel.
When you traveled back then, were you, what's the word I want to use, roughing it? Or did you travel with money and hotels and taxis, or did you backpack, or What was your level of, what was your comfort level, I should say?
Yeah, level of discomfort.
Level of discomfort.
No, I was backpacking, and most of the time because, one of the equations you'd make back in the 60s, 70s, even the early 80s is you have money and you have time. And if you don't have a lot of time, maybe you spend a bit more money, but if you're hoping to spend a lot of time, then you have to use the money sparingly. So I was always opting for trying to travel as long as I could, and that meant staying in some, less than ideal hotels and whatnot, and of course occasionally having to sleep in, train stations or whatever, and really kind of roughing it. But but that was part of the experience, and it was always really exciting doing it. Did
they have youth hostels back then?
In some places. I mean, I actually, this book is almost, I've been saying it's almost like a prequel. I have another book actually coming out with a university press later this spring, and it recounts a trip traveling for a year through the Middle East and Asia, from Turkey to Afghanistan and India. And of course, so there was really no hostels or anything at that time in those places. So it was kind of very much pretty rough hotels and everything. So, for the most part, I've never really stayed in hostels, only in the last few years occasionally.
The hostels can range from a private room to sort of bunk bed communal rooms, right?
Yeah, they've become much more elaborate over the years. Actually, a few years back, and my family, we were part of an exchange while I was working at the university. We were in Japan for 4 months, and we stayed in hostels there. They were very elaborate and actually quite nice, and a little bit more expensive. But a lot of the ones otherwise could be almost kind of dormitory style. And in the book, actually, I talk about going to Ladakh, which is an area just in northern India. And I guess they would have been called hostels. There, it was very much a dormitory style that I remember staying in, and that I write about in the book. And but again, that's part of the experience. You in those environments, you meet all kinds of people from all walks of life in different places, and that's the sort of thing that you sort of remember. And probably, as you know, probably your own experience, I suspect, it's really the people that you remember as much as seeing particular sites.
Oh, absolutely. The people make it or break it, depending on who you run into and what happens to you. I was going to ask you, actually.
And they all have their own stories, of course, and they're all always interesting, yeah.
I was going to ask you if you had any bad experiences, or what was the worst experience that you had in those travels at that time?
And again, not necessarily recounted in this book. A couple of times I've been sort of arrested and in place. Actually, there are a couple of stories in this book about being picked up by police, usually on fairly stupid things, going through the United States, where I did something I definitely shouldn't have done, and they would pick me up but fairly quickly release me. Most of the time, the worst things I can say about traveling is coming down with something like dysentery or something.
Oh, okay.
But those again are part of the experience. Anytime now I hear about somebody else who's suffering from some kind of ill health from travel, I can identify with exactly what they're talking about.
So on here it says the book comes out December 10th. Was that last December or this coming December?
No, it's already out. It came out just in this past December.
Okay.
And so just kind of at the cusp of Christmas. And so I know a few people did pick up copies for, Christmas gifts to people. But it's continued to, sell well again in the last few months. And in fact, I just the other day got my first review of the book. Very, very positive, and I'm hoping that other people will continue to pick it up, because I think it is an entertaining read. It's hardly a a tough slog to go through it. There's kind of bite-sized pieces about travel and work and meeting people and at that time in the world.
Well, I see a bunch of positive comments on here, so it looks like the book is doing well. I guess my last question before we wrap this up is, do you have a website that you want to give out?
I don't, but they can people can catch me on Facebook, so that's one place. The other thing is, I still have my university email address, and will continue to have that. Trevor.Harrison at ULETH, that's actually up here short for the University of Lethbridge, .ca. And people can look me up, and they'll find information about what I'm doing now, past books that I've written, including a book of poetry, and what I'm planning to do in future. So, I look forward to meeting with people and talking with anybody who's interested in writing, period.
Okay. Well, Trevor, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and chatting with you. Best of luck with your book. I hope it does well.
Thanks so much, Douglas, and you have a wonderful day. Nice to talk to you.